Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to Richard Skipper Celebrates. We're halfway through another week, whatever that means these days. 10 years ago, I would be at the Iguana tonight, along with my dear friend, Dana Lorge, celebrating the great entertainers that would show up and be a part of our show. But now I have this platform, and I'm all about celebrating artists and their body of worth. What makes a great artist? Well, tonight we've got one of the best in the business, and that's Erin Cronican. Now, depending on who you talk to, they may know her as a great producer, or a great director, or a great actress, or a great singer, or all of those things. I met her as a singer at the salon at et cetera, where she was every Sunday night, and hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll be back. Now, I'm going to be bringing her on in a few moments, but before we do, I'd like to share some of her acting chops with all of you, and you'll see what I mean. She truly is one of the best. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Erin Cronican.
I can't do this, Ryan. It's you. Only you.
Violet, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. No, I'm so sorry. I didn't
He doesn't deserve me. I need to be with somebody who appreciates me. A mutual, one hand washing the other relationship. And not something where someone's afraid of having what he really wants. You know, statistically speaking...
I'm a little confused right now. You're doing the woman talk and I'm a man.
You want to be exclusive? I just finished the final chapter with that man. You got me if you want me.
How is it that you and your sister were so close as kids and now you don't even talk to each other?
You know, I'm sorry I brought it up.
You haven't even told me the whole story. Does it bother her?
What?
That you don't speak.
All I know is my parents would roll over in their grave if they knew half the shit she's pulled over the years.
Guess we don't really get what we want in life, do we?
What are you talking about?
You know I'm an only child. I only wished for a brother or sister, and you don't even talk to yours?
It's been a great weekend. Let's just, please don't start with
I
this.
don't understand you. She's the only family you have left. And don't you care? Don't you want her to come to our wedding?
Boss, package came for you.
Put yourself in my place. 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 Put yourself in my place.
How'd this package arrive?
Messenger.
I want to find out who paid to have it sent here. Today.
You send Target photos of me to my mom.
If you expect to be a success, don't make personal shopper an oxymoron, okay? I specifically said...
No problem. Are you really going through with this?
Excuse me. Is there something wrong?
No, they're absolutely perfect. Perfect.
You even have the authority to fire us.
Well, actually, it's one of the few precious clauses my nutty ex-agent put into my contract. I have the ability to set salaries, hire and fire my staff, which includes you too.
We deserve to know who's replacing us.
Are they pretty?
Hello, Erin. How are you?
Hi. That was quite a blast from the past there.
Well, happy holidays. How are you? How are you really in the midst of this crazy world that we find ourselves in?
It is insane. It's all insane, but I just keep trying to move forward as much as I can, you know, and try to just keep creating every day.
And you do. How are you creating right now? And have you really embraced social media and this platform with all the work you're doing, or is this something that you've been resisting?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I think in the beginning there was a lot of resistance. I think there was a sense of like, how do we recreate what we had before and do it on this idea of streaming things. And once we got rid of that idea and thought, we're not recreating anything, we're going to try something new, it became a lot easier. And with my theater company, we've been doing Zoom productions that have been more than readings, but less than full productions. They've been more benefits than trying to do a full production, but still having as much of a production value, just like with your show here. You have as much production value as you can.
That's right.
And hopefully you entertain people, and hopefully it provides some sort of, something to get away from what's happening, but also something to engage. Because I think that what people want right now is to be engaged and to actually do something to try to make things better.
Now, you are one of those people who have a foot in the cabaret community and also a foot in the theater community.
Mm-hmm.
So you wear a lot of hats, add juggler to that triple threat.
Yes.
But today marks 272 days since our theaters shut down, which is hard for me to even fathom. But I want to go back to March 12th was when all the theaters shut down. What did your calendar look like on March 11th?
Well, I saw Hadestown in on March 11th at the matinee, and I knew that was probably a bad idea given what was going on in the world, but I thought, I'll do it anyway. I patronized one of the restaurants in the neighborhood, and it was almost empty. And we had just finished in our theater company a sold out production of Animal Farm, which we had written. We had adapted ourselves.
I have to tell you two things. I'm going to interrupt you for a moment. We'll come
No, please.
But I want to give a shout out to two people. First of all, Sumitsuki said, you should do an interview with Erin Cronican. And so I reached out to you immediately, and you said yes, and we picked tonight. And then 3 days later, talk about synchronicity, Jackie Parker.
Jackie Parker, yeah.
Me, and she said, have you thought about interviewing Erin Cronican? And then I sent her the promo for tonight. But she talked about this production of Animal Farm. And she said, when you first walked in the theater, there you were on, if you'll pardon the expression, all fours, looking like a pig because you were playing a pig.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about that production.
Yeah, well, we wanted to, the very first scene in the book of Animal Farm is Old Major gathering all of the animals into the barn to talk about this dream that he had. So our co-director, Brandon Walker, said, why don't we start out the play? We'll just already be on stage and we'll do a pre-show improvisation for the 20 minutes that the audience is entering. And what we ended up doing was dividing them into 3 groups. They could either be chickens, and they would sit in one area, or cows or sheep, which is very important because we didn't have a whole lot of those in our characters. Each of us played 7 or 8 different characters. There were some 29 characters represented in the play amongst 4 actors. And what we would do is we would teach them, okay, so what does a chicken say? What does a sheep say? What does a cow say? And they would all just start mooing and cackling and just bawling. It was so wonderful. And we just talked to them as the 4 pigs, as Old Major, Snowball, Squealer, and Napoleon. With our own personalities. There was a lot of fighting between Snowball, who I played, and Napoleon, who Brandon played. And just try to get them into the feeling of what it's like to be in a barnyard. As much as one can when you're human beings on all 4s, which we remained on all 4s until really Squealer and Napoleon started to stand up toward the end of the play. And then the few times we played chickens, we would have, or hens, we would be just on two legs, or when we would play humans. That was it.
Now, do you have any experience with farms?
I do not.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from San Diego originally, from an uptown, what we would call here an uptown, but North County suburb called Escondido.
And you performed with our dear friend Devlin, who's watching, and she says,
yes.
Yes.
I love Devlin so much.
Oh, you too. And I miss her. And she just recently got married. And I was telling her the other day, has the most beautiful family. So I'm so proud and happy for her. So you grew up in San Diego, brothers and sisters?
I do. I have 3 siblings that are from different parents, or they're connected to my parents. One parent, not another. And then I have a younger brother who is a full-blooded sibling, but they all feel like, full-blooded siblings.
Well, they are. They're family.
It's a very but fractured all around the country family. They're not ever in one central area.
Now, in my research on you, I read that growing up, you were not that kid who aspired to be an actress or pursued a career as an actress initially, that it all started with you because you were able to memorize movies and things you saw on television. And one of your earliest memorizations, if you will, was Charlotte's Web.
So it was, and I was young.
So you do start with it, but it's full circle.
But I didn't think Broadway. I didn't think I'm going to go to Broadway. I thought, well, maybe I knew I wanted to be some sort of performer. Frankly, I wanted to be Maria in West Side Story, because if a white girl could do it in a movie, right here. And as you saw from the clip earlier, I am a natural brunette. That dark hair you saw on the Veronica Mars show, that's my natural hair color.
Are you serious? I mean, I thought it was the other way around.
No, I dyed my hair blonde. Funny story. When I was doing the last 5 years, and the director wanted a blonde, and they were going to wig me. And I just felt in that theater, it was about a 200-seat theater, a little bit more. And I thought it was so intimate. And I just thought the idea of walking out the stage door with brown hair didn't feel right to me. So I asked them if they could dye my hair instead, rather than paying for a wig and the upkeep for the wig. And they said yes. And it was like a light went off in my life. And it was like, oh, this is what it's meant to be.
Well, how did it actually start for you? How did you end up doing, I'm assuming that it was local theater that you started with?
Yes. I started with a local youth theater in Escondido that was called Patio Playhouse, which is where I did Charlotte's Web when I was in 5th grade.
What role did you play?
I played the gander, who is not in the movie. It's half of the goose's line. So I got to say the, T-double-E, double-R, double-R, double-I, double-F, double-I, double-C-C-C-C-C. That was my favorite line. I got to say that with a fake accent, why? But just because I was a show-off kid, I don't know what. But yeah, and then my mother was very clear, though, other than those few little youth theater things, she's like, school is where you need to be, so no professional auditions for you. You're just going to do school productions up until you become an adult. So I didn't get to do a lot of what my friends were doing.
Now, in San Diego, were there opportunities for you to audition for professional theaters?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there were at least 5 or 6 musical theaters that were hiring young people. And so, yeah, I had a lot of opportunity, but my mother wouldn't let me audition for them. I had to stay in school, and because a lot of them would rehearse during the days because they were equity contracts. And so I didn't do my first equity contract until I got out of college.
Now, looking back, and I want you to be completely honest with what you answer,
Right.
do you think she made the right decision for you or the wrong decision at that time?
Well, my life would have probably taken a faster turn toward a more lucrative acting career, but I would not have become a producer. Absolutely not.
And why do you say that?
Because I think that my life outside of the theater and my life in school prepped me for the idea of producing, of being an activist, being someone who wants to be active in the world as a global citizen and make a difference in the world. And I don't know that if I had followed a performer track as closely as I wanted to, that might have happened. And so I think I'm infinitely happier now, even though both of my careers as a producer and as an actor are kind of doing this as it goes up, rather than one of them taking off and the other,
So when did things change? When was the moment that, or was your mind already made up, even though your mom was saying no professional auditions now? Were you already committed that this was going to be the career and life that you would have?
Yeah, it was that or become a professional tennis player. But I didn't love tennis as much as I loved performing. I was just really good at it. And that's not a reason enough to do a career.
And at what point did things change with your mom?
Did they ever change with my mom?
It's funny. And if my mom's watching, I love her dearly, but I received a notification from someone who's writing a book who said, what was the greatest piece of wisdom that you got from your mom? And I said, I'm going to have to weigh in and think about that. But what do you think was the greatest piece of wisdom that you got from your mom?
People will treat you the way you let them treat you, is what my mother would always say. And it was fitting for so many different situations. But yeah, that was her biggest lesson to me, I think.
And how often in this business are you reminded of that?
Daily.
Daily.
Yeah, it's hard. And then I'm an empath, so I feel what other people are feeling, and I think you're very similar too. And it lends itself to being a very resourceful and helpful person. But I think I sometimes erase my own thoughts and feelings in that pursuit of making other people happy.
I experienced that earlier today.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you say that. And you really bring a clarity to that. And anyone who is an empath, and I recently was interviewed, and they said, ask one word that would describe you. And I said, an empath. And that you really bring a clarity to it that I haven't really thought about before.
Thank you for saying that. That makes me feel warm and fuzzy.
Well, it's true. And I hope you're drinking your bourbon.
I am. It's mixed with almond nog.
Oh, good. And I'm drinking my peppermint tea. So here's you.
Yeah. Cheers.
So you continued through school. Did you go to college?
I did. I went to Pepperdine University for theater.
I love Pepperdine.
Yeah.
And you studied theater there. When, where, and how did you make the move to New York? And when was that?
I moved to New York in 2005, so 15 years ago. And it was when I had already gotten my equity card, and I started to feel like I had mastered the level that I was at in San Diego, which sounds really, I don't know, it sounds too confident, but it wasn't that I had done everything I wanted to do. It's the kind of community where everyone knows you. Mm-hmm. So they didn't need to see me at an initial audition. They could either bring me into callbacks or not call me in at all. And most of the time I just wasn't called in at all. And much of that was because of my equity card, because they had.
What was the show that you got your equity card with?
It was called Oxygen. It was this is interesting. Mm-hmm. It was a play written by two scientists, one who was a Nobel laureate in chemistry, and the other who was known as the father of the birth control pill.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So these two scientists got together to talk about who actually discovered the oxygen molecule. And I played Marie Lavoisier, who was a very famous wife of a scientist, Antoine Lavoisier. And that was a very interesting.
Now, did that happen when you were in San Diego?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at what point did you're in college, did you start auditioning while you were in college, or did you wait until you finished college?
Pretty much I waited. I did a couple of open calls for things while I was in college, and you would think I would go to a lot more, but school was just all encompassing, and I was trying to get as much as I could out of it. So mm-hmm. This was just after college, maybe about, no, it was probably about 5 years after college, but I had been working steadily in San Diego
Now, did you chart out your life? Like, in 5 years, I'm going to go to New York or anything? Or again, how did that happen?
A breakup. So I did the last 5 years, and I was engaged at the time. And then we broke up like a week before my show opened. And there's a song in the show that's all about that. It's like someone out there, someone wanted me to get like really great reviews, like, oh, she's really living this, because I was really living it. Yeah, and I kind of decided at that point, we had been living together, we owned property together, so I was going to have to get bought out of my share of our condo. I was like, okay, I could either get a roommate and be stuck in a lease, or I can plan to move to New York and just get out of here. And that's what I did.
It may seem like I'm getting deep into your personal life, and if
I'm an open book.
But I ask these questions because they are choices that we make in life, detours, whatever. How long were you in the relationship before you broke up?
We were in almost 3 years.
And was marriage, settling down, ever discussed, or was it in the future?
It was. So we got engaged, and I never thought I would be engaged before that. But we were in a really amazing group of friends, and one by one, each couple were getting engaged, and it just sort of became our turn. It was like, and that's sort of how it felt.
Mm-hmm.
And both of us, I think, knew that it wasn't quite right. When I got engaged, I went, crap, what did I just do? And I didn't tell anybody for like a week. I was wearing the ring though, so I was trying to like hide it. I don't know. It was weird. And it wasn't any disrespect to the fine young person that I was engaged to. I just knew it wasn't right.
Did the breakup come as a surprise to you, or did it?
Yes. Still, it came as a surprise because I thought we were supposed to work this out. Like, you have a conversation, but instead it was, I don't think we're supposed to be together.
And of course, it's speculation. It's always speculation. But do you think you would have stayed in San Diego if you had married him?
No, because we were planning to move to New York also, because his sister lived here, may still live here. I'm not really sure. But New York was not going to be the kind of place for him. Like, he's a crunchy granola kind of guy.
Okay.
So he lives in Portland, Oregon right now. It's absolutely perfect. So that wouldn't have lasted for very long anyway.
And has he been able to see or experience any of the success that you've had here in New York?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. No.
So you made the decision after that show closed that you did come to New York.
Yeah.
And had you been to New York before?
I had been to New York twice. The first time I did not enjoy myself. I thought, what is the big deal? But it was right after 9/11 and everything was shut down. Wow. And then the second time I stayed in the East Village on 2nd Avenue and 7th Street. And I was just, I fell in love deeply, very, very deeply. And I was like, this is it. I have to, that was in 2003. And I knew I needed to come out.
Now, when you made the decision to move here, did you know anyone here? Did you have friends?
I had 2 friends in the city. So I sublet a room in one of those friends' apartments, and I moved here specifically on the birthday of the other person. I said, I will be in New York by your birthday, and made it happen. I flew in on the day of.
And just, I want to know, what did you bring with you? I mean, did you have a lot of accoutrements that you brought with you? Were you?
Not. I had 2 suitcases and a dog. That's what I had when I moved here. And then once I had my formal living arrangement set, then I shipped everything that I had in boxes after that. But it was just 2 suitcases and a dog when it first started, and money in my pocket. But.
And what was your first survival job?
Oh my God. I think that was my very first one. I did not last very long. It was working for a producer who, this is interesting. They booked musical acts in the lobbies of buildings. So, in New York, which was foreign to me, I had never seen anything like that before. But when you have a cellist that's playing in the lobby of a building, especially during the holidays, that person gets booked out by certain companies. And I worked for one of those companies as a marketing consultant. Yeah, didn't last very long.
And then how did the path begin for you? How did you begin to find out how to acclimate yourself in this business and get started?
Just meeting other actors and spending a lot of time in Actors Equity. That was a big, hanging out in the lobby when it was on the second floor.
It helped that you came with an equity card.
It did help. It helped a lot because, my goodness, the olden days of sitting out in the lobby, I didn't ever have to do that because I had my card, but I really had to walk through all the non-equity actors that were sitting in the hallway and using the McDonald's bathroom.
I know. And then McDonald's just closed.
It did.
Yes, because anyone who knows where the Equity Building is, you would go through the McDonald's. If you wanted to sneak in through the back entrance, you would go through McDonald's. And
yes, yes.
So what was your first professional job in New York?
In New York.
And how long were you in New York before you got your first professional job?
I think I probably started. I did more film and TV in New York at first. That's such a good question. I'd have to go back through my archives, but I did a musical in 2007. I moved here in 2005. I did a musical in 2007 about the Holocaust, about a man who was a Nazi, and he would somehow deflect his guilt as a Nazi by having a Jewish puppet that he would take around to Weimar cabarets. And I played the Nazi's wife. Wow. It was a weird little show, but it was great though. It was great. It was written by Mark Barkin and Norman Beim. Do you remember those two gentlemen? Because they had a lot of stuff.
The salon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was in early 2007. So that wasn't the first thing that I did. I had a lot of different callbacks for random stuff, but that's the first full production that comes to my mind. I've done a lot.
I want to ask you, coming to New York with your equity card, which is usually not the path for most actresses that arrive in New York, or actors for that matter, do you find that it was an asset or a hindrance that you arrived with your equity card?
Well, so my day job for many, many years here is as a career coach and for actors. And I would always tell them that before they get their card, especially if they do musicals, they should aim to get some really well-known musicals on their resume that are in the realm of the kind of work that they want to do. I did so many original musicals in San Diego, other than some mainstays like Evita and South Pacific and The Wizard of Oz, and Joseph. I've done some, but most of them were new musicals. And so someone would look at my resume and go, I can't tell what you do from your resume. And that I wish I had more developed before getting my equity card. But I certainly would not have wanted to arrive to New York without my card.
You have a very interesting point. You are a career coach for actors. You still do that?
On occasion. So this is going to take us into another direction, but so many people know that in November of 2018, I was diagnosed with terminal breast cancer. So it's called metastatic or stage 4 breast cancer. And it was at that point where I really needed to think about, okay, if I only have a certain amount of years left, no one knows. There's no, magic bullet that's going to tell us this is the absolute day that you're going to go. But knowing that it's limited, what do I actually want to be doing with my time? And I realized that I was splitting myself so thin that I started to put the coaching on a little bit of a back burner. And it's there for me. I'm coaching somebody this Friday. I kind of handpick my clients now instead of pushing for it. because I really wanted to focus on my legacy with the theater company more than anything, and my own career as an actor.
And I'm going to ask these questions, and if you don't want to go that direction, we'll go in a completely different direction.
No, it's fine.
But and God bless you. You are such an inspiration to so many people who know you, and that you've gone through this, and we're all rooting for you.
Thank you.
But when you get a diagnosis like this, were there any signs that you thought about prior to this, or did it just come out of left field for you?
Well, so I had been diagnosed previously with stage 2 breast cancer 3 years prior to that. So the hope is, the statistics for my particular breast cancer was very, very aggressive, which it tends to be when it's a young person, anybody under the age of 40 who's getting breast cancer. It's most of us, it is very, very aggressive. So the chances of it coming back were 33%. Still, I had hoped maybe I would be in that 67%, but there was a little voice inside my head that's like, you're going to be in the 33. I just know it. So, I would go back for exams every 3 months. And it got to the point after I was 2 years out that I got to go every 6 months instead. And I thought, oh, this is really great. And then I got re-diagnosed, and, so it was a shock, and yet it wasn't, in a way, because you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. There's never a moment that any survivor, quote unquote, ever feels safe, ever. There's no.
I heard this from my other friends who are battling this as well.
Yeah, and I think it's very similar to some of the people that I've talked to who, they're surviving right now quite nicely on the medication for AIDS. But there's always the fear that those medications are not going to work, and that something's going to flare up, or they're going to get pneumonia, or there's going to, these diseases are just relentless to the psyche. So did I know? No. Did I fear? Yes. And, when I got diagnosed, I was worthless for like a month because I just thought I was a walking dead person. And then over time, I started to realize that I needed to get on with the business of living and go through.
What was that deciding factor for you? Because I will say this, again, those of us who know you, you have not hidden this. You have shared everything, and which I find to be incredibly brave. But the fact that you put out, what you're feeling, if you're having a bad moment, you share it with all of us. And I've also, had people that I've who have had cancer, and they don't share it with the world, for whatever reasons that are personal to them. Why is it because of your life as an actress that you wanted the world to know what you're going through?
I think particularly being stage 4, you just wouldn't know that that's what I'm going through.
No.
And so, because this is interesting. So the treatment that they put you on is not as aggressive as it would be if you were early stage, because in early stage, they're trying to cure you. Once you're late stage, like me, stage 4, there is no cure. This is the thing that will kill me, unless I get hit by a bus someday, right? So they're not interested in curing me. They're interested in stabilizing me so I can have as much time as possible. So they don't want to give me the killer drugs. They want to give me the stuff that almost kills me, but not quite. And so I don't look sick. But the stuff that I'm dealing with is so huge that if I don't somehow share it, then people will just be like, look at you. You look so great. You must be feeling wonderful. And then I have to give them bad news or lie or hide myself somehow. It just feels inauthentic to me. So for me, it makes me feel just more at peace to be able to share what I'm going through. And also hopefully provide some sort of respite for other people who might be dealing with the same thing. They don't even have to communicate it to me, but knowing someone else is out there who's dealing with this might make them feel better somehow or more connected. I don't know.
I have a friend, Valerie David. You may know Valerie.
I do know Valerie, yeah.
She's created a show called The Pink Hulk, and she's been diagnosed 3 times. She's beat it 3 times. She also has, I mean, she's put her feelings and what she's going through and the experiences of going through breast cancer right there on stage. And are you keeping a journal? Are you documenting your days and living with this because you're living with it?
Yeah. I'm not journaling per se. I would say the closest thing to a journal would be Instagram, because I'll often take photographs and kind of show what's going on with me on chemo days or on scan days. And I also have a blog. So I've been meaning to do another cancer update on my blog. I need to do that, but I have it in lots of different pieces in the different things that I write. So.
Well, one of the things about you is that you have not, I mean, even this is a bump in the road, but it hasn't slowed you down. How do you compartmentalize? I'm sure I can't even imagine what it feels like to go through chemo. I have friends who go through it, but I still can't imagine it. Going through chemo, and you're going through chemo while you're rehearsing a show, producing a show, directing a show, starring in a show. How do you get through that when you're dealing with the chemo as well?
It's like anybody who deals with any sort of illness that is, I mean, all of us have performed with a cold and we feel like death. It's basically what it feels like. You just push through. And as many people might attest to, performing gives you a certain amount of adrenaline and a certain kind of oomph. So I'll go on stage, and now, to be fair, I was just going to say you go on stage and you almost feel like a superhuman. But last year, that was not the case for me. I got very, very sick before my chemo kicked in and actually started solving my problems. And I had a very, very large tumor in my lungs, and I had lost a lot of weight. And so I had no muscle mass and I couldn't breathe. And I was doing the play The Maids by Jean Genet. And it's basically it's a 3-character play, but it's mainly 2 characters. And there's so many words, and it is such a physical play. And I had to do so many modifications to be able to survive every night. Every night was just, can I get on stage and not seem tired? Can I get on stage and have my breath underneath me? And at the same time, I was dealing with a paralyzed vocal cord. That's another long story, but came from surgery that I had on my lungs. And there were just so many complications. And I thought, I don't know how I'll survive. And it was the hardest thing I've ever experienced physically in my life. But there was still a sense of like ambition and stubbornness. Like, I cannot let cancer steal from me the one thing that makes me happy. So I just pushed, and I trusted that my co-director would tell me if the show was suffering because of me, because I wasn't capable. And interestingly, the feedback from everyone in our theater company was that the vulnerability that I brought, because I was fighting so hard, was appropriate for the play. Okay, I'll just keep doing it then.
Well, one of the things that Valerie and I have talked about is putting a face on cancer. It's still a stigma that nobody wants to talk about. It's an uncomfortable subject for those of us who are not going through it. I can only imagine, once again, what it is for what you're going through. And you mentioned earlier the fact that the average person would not, looking right now at this interview, anyone coming into this would not realize that you're going through this. Are you still doing the chemo on a regular basis?
Yeah, I do it every Tuesday, unless, like this week, my platelets were too low. So it was more dangerous to give me chemo than to give me a week off. So I did not get chemo this week, which is always a disappointment.
And when that happens, what's the process like for you? Are there other methods that you do to get through the week, or you just have to, excuse the expression, grin and bear it till the
grin and bear it, and then just hope that my numbers rebound for the next week, which they always do. It's just, even though they don't tend to give the most dramatic chemo to those with stage 4, I am on probably the hardest chemo. Mm-hmm. My doctor is very aggressive with it, and he's like, we're going to fight with everything we've got. So typically people stay on my regimen for 9 months, 10 months before it stops working. But mine has been going for 21 months and has not failed me yet. So it will eventually, because that's the nature of cancer. It outsmarts chemo eventually. But I just talked to my doctor, and there are 4 or 5 other regimens to try before we even get worried. And the hope is that technology and medicine just stays one treatment ahead of me. That's it. Just one treatment ahead, so that when one stops, then we'll start the other. Then we'll start the other,
And the thing that I want to ask you is, because, again, those of us who can't even fathom what you're going through, I keep saying that, but what advice do you give to us in terms of how we deal with someone who's going through this once they go public with this, such as you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think that most people, we're talking like 99% of people are loving and caring and scared. And all they want to do is make the person who has cancer feel better. And unfortunately, much of what is said can really alienate the person with cancer. So the feedback that I hear from other cancer patients and also myself is any sort of advice, we've heard it. We've read it. You want to give it. You want to tell me about that herb. You want to tell me about that person who cured their cancer with zinc or whatever, not mercury, but like whatever silver solvent that you can put in water. I don't even know. But like, we've heard it all. And our doctors we're all already inundated with information. And so, asking, I have heard of this treatment, would you like to hear about it? And give us the permission to say, you know what, I think I'm good. Otherwise, I just say thank you. But then that's inauthentic, because I'm not going to go research it, because I already have doctors that I trust and people that I'm talking to. And it's not to say that I don't want people to express themselves, but just the open discourse that's necessary, so that they don't feel bad when I say, you know what, I'm not interested, but thank you. Yes, I know I need to take more vitamin D. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's very difficult when we get advice from so many different places, because the advice also, especially with breast cancer, there is this feeling out there that it's preventable.
Yes, excuse me.
And it's not. Breast cancer comes up for all kinds of reasons that have nothing to do with our behavior. So when someone says, "Oh, you need to take more vitamin D," that puts the blame on me. Erin has not had enough vitamin D, and therefore she gave herself breast cancer. And that's how it tends to occur for me and for a lot of people. And so, the idea of, yes, you want early detection. So absolutely, there's the conventional wisdom that once a month, on the first of the month, you do a breast self-exam, both men and women, because men can get breast cancer as well. And just do that breast self-exam so that you can catch things early, but it's not going to keep you from getting it. That's the thing, is so the stigma shouldn't be there. Like, we gave ourselves this disease because we didn't eat. There are triathletes and people who are they're athletes that are getting this disease, and many diseases. It is, I think, environmental. It is, I think, the things that we're putting in our bodies, but I don't think it's willful. It's not the person necessarily who smoked. It's not the person necessarily who drank. It's, who knows? It could be the aluminum that's in your deodorant. We don't know. And no one will be able to tell me what I did to get stage 4 cancer. Why?
Sorry, I've got a tickle in my throat, so
no problem. You need more peppermint tea.
More peppermint. It's the allergies in the air.
That's terrible.
But I want to ask you, and then I want to move back to your career, because that's really what I want to focus on tonight. I will say this, talking to you, and I appreciate your openness tonight, because again, we don't know. And I will say this, I think that, you define it, it doesn't define you. And at least that's what I'm getting from you. And I know that everyone processes it a different way. And I thank you for being honest and open and putting a face on it. We are rooting for you, and we want you to succeed and be around for 25, 50 years.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. The idea of growing old is so exciting to me. You don't have any idea, because I'll watch someone walk down the street and I'll see them holding hands with a loved one. And I realize that old person with the gray hair is not going to be me. That's like what I'm realizing. Or someone will say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I go, hopefully alive. That's all I got. Sorry. Like, I don't know what to say, because I don't have a 5-year plan. And now that said, this kind of gets to your point from a little bit earlier about this idea of like, what have my plans been and how have things kind of shifted for me in the last few years? Or I started to realize that whether or not I'm going to be here or not doesn't mean that I can't have goals. It just means that, if I get sick, like very sick, before I fulfilled upon those goals, then those goals don't get fulfilled upon. But there was a long time where I wasn't creating goals at all.
Mm-hmm.
It felt useless. It felt silly. It felt, how could I possibly think about the future when I don't know what future I have? But isn't that all of us?
It is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And especially now. I mean, I look at what we're going through right now with the pandemic.
Exactly.
And it has placed many of us on the same playing field. There's a quote that I quote on almost every show, and it's from David Friedman. And David Friedman says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. Yeah. And I think that everybody is on their own path right now. But I think of this as a time to pause, to think about what we have, what we had, and what we desire in our lives. And I think if each of us takes a moment to think about that, I mean, each and every day for you and for all of us, it's a precious gift. I know a lot of people have had difficulty getting through this time frame. And for me, I take each day as its own entity. I don't think I make plans, as I'm sure you do too, but I don't know what next week holds, or the next month, or the next year, especially now. So God bless you. But I do want to get back to you, and thank you for taking us here.
You're welcome. I knew it was going to be a...
But I wanted to get back to the career coaching, because you said something earlier that a lot of people, a light bulb went off for me. A lot of people, and I was one of those people too, who put every credit we've done on a resume. Right. And then I stopped taking, those off, even with doing these interviews, making pitches for the people that I do want to interview, what are going to be those items that are going to attract someone to want to sit down and do an interview with me. Right. But with you, what advice do you give an actor when it comes to their resume and what they're going to put on the resume and moving forward with their career?
So I always say that the resume serves two purposes. It is a glimpse at the past so that we can create a sense of trust in what you have done as a body of work, but it also is a glimpse at the present of what can you play right now. So the resume should always be evolving. If you have, especially people coming out of school where they're in college playing all different ages, okay, that's fine. 1 year out of school, you're 21 years old, but you played Amanda Wingfield. okay, that's fine. Once you're 23, take that off your resume because it's not useful to you. We're not going to hire you to play Laura's mom. We're just not. So you start to craft a resume that's going to help people understand how to cast you today, but also establish trust in your body of work so that they can bring you in front of a producer and feel confident that this person can handle whatever role is being handed to them.
Now, before we run out of time, I do have to talk about the fact in the midst of everything else that you do, you run a theater.
I do.
Yes. Tell us about the theater and how that came about.
So the theater, I'm a co-founder of the theater company called The Scene Place. Interestingly, many people may not know that the name The Scene Place is derived from the actual Greek word for theater. So theater in Greek means the place we go to see ourselves.
And I have to ask you the most compelling question that anybody will ever ask you about theater. Is it ER or RE?
Oh my goodness. For us, it's ER because we're in America. But yeah, I think a lot of people think that the institution is an RE and the space is an ER. That's reasonable, I think, to assume. But for us, we spell it with an ER, as in we're a theater company. But yeah, so the Scene Place got founded in 2009, and there was a large group of us. I was one of the smaller ensemble members. Excuse me, at that time. And then I and Brandon Walker, the co-founder as well, kind of stuck it out and created what we have now 11 years later. And it is an activist theater company. We focus on social justice issues, primarily with underrepresented voices. So women, BIPOC, LGBTQIA voices, disabled voices, and immigrant voices. Excuse me. And so it really encompasses the full scope of what we see in New York audiences, but really trying to focus on bringing those kinds of people into our ensemble and then infusing the shows that we do with their personal stories and bringing them into our work. We're an organically driven theater company, meaning that we really focus on the here and the now. And what is this individual artist bring? Not their skill set per se, but their humanity. So this particular person who happens to be disabled, or this particular person who happens to be LGBTQ, what does that do to their interpretation of a script, and how do we embrace that instead of separating ourselves?
And in the casting process, when you're casting for these shows, is that specifically what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and not specific to, not to say this particular role should be trans, but this particular role can be, because there's no restriction in the script that would say otherwise. And then if that's what we happen to get in terms of who is the best fit for the role, then we have that conversation once we hit rehearsals. Well, what does it mean for this character?
But I'm assuming that with the shows that you cast, that all of the roles that you cast, the characters, are all fluid, that they may be a certain way on paper, but depending on who walks through that door will really shape and color who those characters are.
Absolutely, 100%. And it's beautiful, and it's very confronting as well as an artist to be seen so deeply by an ensemble. And I should also note that we're a year-round ensemble, so our casting comes from within our group. We tend to hold auditions twice a year. This year, we only had auditions in January, and we'll do some more again in January. So we had one less audition this year than we would have had typically.
But you are doing these virtually now, am I correct?
Yes. We work with our theater company virtually. We have, we always have met on Monday nights from 7 to 11 for training. And the training is not only in the craft of acting, but also in the business of acting. So we talk about producing, we talk about building an audience, we talk about fundraising, we talk about all kinds of outreach, we talk about education, we talk about the state of theater and who we want to be within it. So it's a very fruitful 4 hours a week that we spend together.
That's amazing. Now, I can't believe this, but we are at the end of our show. I hope it was fun for you.
It was fun for me. I got to drink my nog. I got
Yes,
to talk about
we
cancer.
covered a lot of territory tonight. I want to thank you so much for being you and all the work that you do and the gifts that you bring to New York and beyond. I want to thank everybody who tuned in tonight. We had quite a group of people, all mutual friends of both of us. I can see them popping up here. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And if you had a great time, and I hope you did, please go to my website, richardskipper.com, sign my guest book with your thoughts about the show, because that helps to boost me and other markets. It also helps in terms of future guests. So please do that if you don't mind. I also end every show by asking everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Let me ask you this. Do you take contributions for your theater?
We do. We do. They can go to thesceneplace.org. That's scene with your eyeballs. Sceneplace.org. Thesceneplace.org.
And I will place that on my timeline as well.
Thank you.
If you all, I know it's the holidays and we're all strapped, but if you're able to contribute anything to the Scene Plays Theater, and I'm going to do that when we get off of this.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
So do that. And reach out to the 9th person on your friends list and let them know what they mean to you. Not with a phone call, not with an email or text, but with a phone call. Do that. Now, before we sign off, I want to give you the final word tonight. Anything that you want to talk about that you want to expound upon that we already discussed this evening, anything that we didn't mention that you wish that we had, or just any message that you want to put out to everyone at this time. And I do want to say, while you're thinking about that, that if you're all around tomorrow afternoon, I am going to be celebrating Mark Sendroff.
Yay!
Yes, who is, an amazing, amazing attorney. Do you know Mark?
No, but he looks amazing.
He is amazing,
his name.
and he is Broadway's legal eagle. So I want to, if you're all tuning in, if you have any legal questions, we'll try to address those as well. So please, 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So now the stage is all yours.
Well, I just wanted to say just thank you for being, you also have the most gorgeous blue eyes. I just can't stop staring at them. And that if people have not done it yet, they should absolutely subscribe to Richard Skipper Celebrates on YouTube. That was something that you requested today, and it shot up just leaps and bounds just with that one request, which speaks to how amazing you are in this community and how many people love you. So absolutely go onto YouTube, Richard Skipper Celebrates, and click subscribe like I did today. And no, that is the only thing that I wanted to say.
Well, thank you. I love you. Have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Love you.
Bye.